Hi, my name is Jason Grant, and this is Living with Integrity, a series of short stories on what it means to live with integrity. Enjoy! What is perfection? I find that many people are scared of the word perfect. They avoid it until the cows come home. They will say that nobody's perfect. This seems to be a program that's running in English language for millennia. It becomes a kind of excuse for doing mediocre work. It becomes an excuse for just under-delivering. Perfection, or the word perfect, simply means optimal. When you hear the word optimal, you might not have so many issues with it as you have with perfect. Either way, perfect and optimal mean the same thing. So when I'm talking about living a perfect life, we are talking about living an optimal life. Of course, many people have equated perfection in life with lots of money, and of course, perhaps they've equated it with extreme physical fitness and things like that. But optimal life is led when you have balance between many areas in your life, including spirituality, emotional intelligence, physical, certainly financial, creative, and so on. So when I'm writing about living perfect life and the art of perfect life, I'm talking about blueprints for how to get to that optimal state and maintain that. So if you are going to be aiming for something less than optimal, I found it to be the case that sooner or later that becomes a slippery slope of lowering the standards, and eventually we hit the rock bottom. I certainly have had that happen to me in my life, and I've let my life slide to the virtual rock bottom. Rock bottom is not a fun place to be at. It can be an amazing teacher, of course, but it's not a fun place to be at. So the opposite of rock bottom is perfect. So the art of perfect life is the art of living opposite of rock bottom. There shouldn't be anything controversial about this. Perfection is the only thing we ought to be striving for until we achieve it and realize it. When we realize it and achieve it, we ought to work on maintaining it. This is the most sane way to be living life. Other things are effectively insane. But we have been so conditioned into living within insane world that insanity has become sanity. It reminds me of the movie Lorax, in which one of the kids is clocking on to the fact that artificial trees and no nature is somewhat a strange way to live life. He gets an intuitive calling to explore the world beyond the walls of the city that has been perfectly built out for them, but is actually just a goldfish bowl. Now check out what's happening here. In Lorax, and it's certainly a movie that you ought to be watching unless you have already seen it. In Lorax, the city that the citizens live inside of seems perfect to them. It seems like it's perfectly normal to be living in that city, and that artificial trees are normal. In fact, in that perfect city, the real trees are frowned upon. Why is that? Because the system has brainwashed and gaslit every citizen of that city to think that artificial trees are the best trees. Of course, it's all led by a guy who is an oppressive oligarch who owns the entire thing and also owns the air that people breathe. This is very, very significant story, because eventually somebody else owns the very air that you breathe, air which is the breath of God. So they shove down your mouth their own air, because they say, my air is better than the air that nature produces. And so what I'm saying here is that this idea of nobody is perfect is equivalent to living inside the city of Lorax, where everyone's accepted artificiality as the norm. But quite the opposite is the truth. So you might have accepted the idea that nobody is perfect, including yourself, and that might have become your norm, but the fact is that the opposite is true. To quote a very, very respectable author, Robert Anthony, who wrote the book Ultimate Secrets of Total Self-Confidence, on the level of being, you are already perfect and whole. And this is the perfection that I am talking about. I'm talking about reflecting the perfection of who you already are in your being, in your soul, in your essence, reflecting that perfection into the world and creating a life that reflects that perfection. This is what we at least ought to be striving towards, if not actually creating. So notice also that what then happens is that if everybody believes that nobody is perfect, but the opposite is true, the person who realizes the opposite truth comes back in to the city and says to other people, you are perfect on the level of being. What are they going to respond with? They will say to that person, you are deluded. Of course, because they've been gaslit into belief that an artificial tree is better than a natural tree that's evolved over billions of years. This is how we get caught into various consumerist cycles which lead towards planetary destruction and wars. Meanwhile, the truth is much simpler. Meanwhile, living with integrity is much simpler, because you align yourself with nature, your true nature, and you work with it. You work with your engines of creation that are perfectly within you and let them express your art of your life which is inevitably, sooner or later, going to become perfect life. So it's almost like the Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone episode where you need to pass from a certain level of delusion and being hypnotized by the system through the Twilight Zone into the other side, which is the state of awakeness to actually realize, hold on a second, I've been lied to all my life. So when you read something opposite to what you've been blabbing for your entire life, don't dismiss it as delusion. Start actually contemplating about whether that may well be the real truth that you've been looking for and that you think you will always strive towards but you will never find. I'm here to tell you that perfection is both realizable, achievable, and it's with us all the time. You've got to first realize your own perfection on the level of being, work towards reflecting that as your art in the doing, and what you will inevitably have is a perfect life. So living with integrity is living a perfect life from your being and reflecting that into your entire surrounding and to everyone that you are dealing with. A radical thought and a radical message in radical times. Live a perfect life. Hi guys, thank you very much for watching yet another story from Living with Integrity series. Please post in the comments on what caught your attention the most, perhaps thought that you had or a question that you have for me. I'll most likely introduce it in future episodes as a theme. Also, if you like or dislike this, please do so and share this with other friends of yours who will benefit from this. I really want to turn this into a community effort, and I'm committed to posting once or twice a week, so watch out for future episodes. Subscribe to the channel as well and ring the bell so you can get the notification when the next story is up. I've got loads and loads of these, hundreds of them in plan, so please stay tuned and let's get this channel growing. Thank you so much.